This is the SciFi World convention in Malmö, Sweden, and I'm here to look at cosplay and a lot of weird and wonderful geek exhibits. But I'm also gonna ask myself, what exactly is science fiction? This convention has had many names. When it started in 1997, it was called the Scandinavian Game and Toy Convention. Between 2004 and 2015, it was called the Scandinavian Game and Film Convention instead. I guess they gave up on trying to classify exactly what belongs here, because since 2016, it's simply been called SciFi World. It's moved around a lot as well. The convention has taken place in Stockholm, Gothenburg and Helsingborg, in addition to Malmö. This was actually the first location where the convention took place in 1997, at Slakthuset, the slaughterhouse in Malmö. After 25 years, this convention has come home again. It's surprisingly hard to find official numbers of how many people visit the SciFi World convention. It's a lot of people, but it's definitely smaller than Comic-Con Stockholm, for example. There are both differences and similarities if you compare SciFi World with Comic-Con Stockholm. There's a lot of merchandise at both conventions, and a lot of cosplay as well, but less here compared to Comic-Con. Also, both conventions are definitely commercially driven, and you can meet up with your favorite celebrities at both places. But there are some differences. At Comic-Con you get a lot of comics and games, but there's very little of that at SciFi World. In general, I'd say that SciFi World targets niche geeks to a higher degree than Comic-Con, and it also flirts a bit less with mainstream light geekdom. Is that a good or a bad thing? I leave that to you to decide. But personally, I love going to both of these conventions. I mentioned cosplay before. I've already talked about the history of cosplay in another video. So this time, I'm just gonna show you a little bit of the geeky splendor you can see here at SciFi World. Can you guess which franchise you can see the most of here? I'll give you a hint. It begins with an S and ends in Star Wars. These are the cosplayers Cathie and Tim Larsson. So I'm just gonna ask a couple of questions if you don't mind. How come you chose to cosplay as Elsa?
I love everything that sparkles, and she's the sparkle queen, so she was an obvious choice for me.
And for Jack Sparrow, the man, the myth, the legend, how long did this costume take to make?
It's actually still work in progress, but it has taken a few years, you know. You always find things to improve, dirty up, and to make it look more piratey.
So this is like the version 4 or something like that?
Or version 40 or something, yeah.
You guys are cosplaying as a pirate and a princess at a sci-fi convention. Do you feel like you belong at a sci-fi convention?
I think so. There's a lot of different cosplays here, Vikings and armor and future and past and present, and I think that we definitely belong here.
It is a bit of a murky distinction between all the genres anyway. I'm asking myself, what exactly is science fiction? What's science fiction to you guys?
Personally, I think science fiction is more like space and technology, but it's such a broad genre, so it can be almost anything.
If you think about it, Elsa makes snow. That's science, so that's science fiction.
Make sure you add them on Instagram. I'm gonna post them somewhere around here. This is Max as Dr. Robotnik. So I gotta ask you, why Dr. Robotnik? Why the Eggman?
Well, I've been looking for a hedgehog because he's been very annoying and he's been destroying my evil plans, and I gotta catch that dude, man, and he's so annoying. But, well, mainly because I saw the first Sonic movie and I really loved the version that Jim Carrey was portraying the character. And when the second movie came out this year, it was even better, more like in the video games, with the look and how he moved and a lot of references. I really like that. Plus, I've been playing Sonic games since I was a little kid.
So how much do you hate hedgehogs, really?
If I could catch every hedgehog, including the blue one, I would put them away, far, far away, probably in space. That would be good, so we could get rid of them.
Or maybe burn them or serve with a mint sauce or something.
Yeah, that would be great. Some deep fried hedgehog, that would be good.
What do you think sci-fi is? What's sci-fi to you?
You could say Star Wars, but mainly everything that has space involved. It could be Stargate, Star Trek. Like, if there's creatures in space, I think that's mainly the biggest sci-fi stuff. To me, that's space. That's sci-fi.
Thank you very much for that definition. And good luck in the hedgehog hunting.
Yeah, probably I'll find him and make a stew.
Sweden's first mermaid, Athiraa, is selling her book here, The Mermaid's Adventure in the Baltic Sea. I have a slight suspicion that you're into mermaids. How come?
My dad still jokes to this day that I was just slightly brainwashed at Disneyland when I was 4. And I was born in '89, that's when The Little Mermaid came out. So yes, it's been a big fandom ever since.
I was in Copenhagen and saw the Little Mermaid statue recently. Have you seen it? I guess so.
Absolutely, I think 4 or 5 times, and I've sat next to her as well. It was a lot of fun when the tourists came by, especially the boats, because then they started stopping and taking pictures, and the tourist guide was like, this is the first time there's a real mermaid next to the actual mermaid.
So you're at a sci-fi convention as a mermaid. Do you feel like a fish out of water?
No, actually, I mean, it is kind of part of cosplay. Mermaiding can be cosplay. I used to cosplay Ariel, for example. And I feel that this is a place, a safe haven for nerds. And that's what I originally am, a mermaid nerd. So now I want to pass on my mermaid nerdness to younger kids, basically.
What do you think is science fiction?
Technically, I do think it's science and fiction, just like you said, futuristic, space, all of that. But here, I think the sci-fi convention is everything nerdy. It can be fantasy, comics, kids' stories, everything, basically, as long as it's nerdy.
That's lovely. Such an inclusive way of defining it. So thank you very much, and I guess everyone buy her book.
Yes, thank you. Do that, please. Save the sea with me. That's what the book is about.
What exactly is science fiction? It should be a pretty simple question to answer, right? But it's a little bit more complex than you think. There's the typical space operas like Star Wars, Star Trek, Dune, and so on. But you also have steampunk and biopunk and military science fiction, cyberpunk, time travel, space colonization, and a lot more. All of this goes under the term science fiction, even though they're very different when it comes to the setting, as well as the underlying themes. But there has to be a simple common denominator. Science is the key word, right? It's all speculative fiction with a basis in science. Well, not really. You have hard science fiction, which focuses on the science itself. This often has high scientific accuracy and lots of detail. You also have soft science fiction, which focuses on character relations and feelings. And then you also have mundane science fiction, somewhere in between. These stories often take place in our solar system, closer to our time, and the technology is supposed to be more plausible. There have been many attempts to define science fiction throughout the decades. Darko Suvin is a Croatian author who in 1972 gave the following definition: a literary genre whose necessary and sufficient conditions are the presence and interaction of estrangement and cognition, and whose main formal device is an imaginative framework alternative to the author's empirical environment. According to the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, this is one of the most useful definitions, and I can't even understand half of the words. In 1926, Hugo Gernsback defined scientification as a charming romance intermingled with scientific fact and prophetic vision. Authors Bailey, Heinlein and Campbell tried to offer another definition in 1947. Two more attempts were made by authors Sturgeon and Knight in 1952. And then Heinlein tried to make a new definition in 1959. It just keeps on going. There have been dozens and dozens of attempts to define science fiction almost every year up until the 90s. Things did slow down a little bit after 1990 when Isaac Asimov gave his definition, but it didn't stop there. New definitions were given in 2000, 2006, 2010 and 2012. More than 39 different authors and scholars have tried to make a final definition of what science fiction is. And those are just the ones I found from doing some quick research. There are hundreds of definitions out there. If there's one thing you can be sure of, it's that science fiction is different from fantasy, right? Well, it's not really that simple. Sure, science fiction has a sense of plausibility, and in fantasy you have magic and mythical creatures. But what about Star Wars? It has a form of magic, and definitely lots of strange creatures. In fact, it's often called a form of space fantasy. And there are many other examples of books and TV shows that blend the genres. In the end, many people come to the conclusion that the difference between science fiction and fantasy is that in science fiction a problem can be solved by reversing the polarity of the flux capacitor, but in fantasy, a wizard did it. I hope you enjoyed this look at the SciFi World Convention in Malmö, Sweden, and a shallow dive into the murky waters of what exactly science fiction is. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.